that I see people coming into the neighborhood from Pennsylvania or from other places. They're coming into the neighborhood and they're conducting drug deals right on the corners, right in front of my house yesterday. And that's kind of scary. You know, I don't want them to see me seeing them, but at the same time, I'm a middle school teacher and it takes a lot to scare me. So I go out in my yard and, you know, I make myself known. You know, 25 years of teaching, you get a little break, you can do that. But, you know, I let the officer know, but I don't know what else I can do about that.
For a second, in a case like that, would it be helpful to you if she wrote down the license plate number?
But sometimes you can't see it. You know, like they park like just far enough, or they see someone out there and then they scream, you know, they hurry up and get in the car.
Take a picture maybe?
Well, a couple of years ago, we had some other vandalism with vegetables being in eggs at our house and all kinds of other stuff. And I did take a picture, and when you looked at the picture the way it was, you couldn't read the license plate, but when you expanded it on the cell phone, the officers were able to get the license plate, so sometimes you can do that.
Can you tell us what, are we allowed if we see people coming in and out of a house at all hours of the night to take pictures and send them to you?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Do you want that?
If you feel that there's drug activity happening at a resident near you, okay, and it's pretty easy to pick out. I've had a lot of people come to me from the town and have told me, hey, I think this is going on. Sure enough, it usually was. And anything you can do in that situation, and remind you, reporting it, you still want to call stuff like that in. Doesn't mean it's going to stop right away, okay? So if you jot down tags, descriptions, stuff like that, that definitely helps us in our investigation, because understand, sometimes it's not just on the street deputy's level. If I get enough information and good intel that there's some serious dealing going on, then I pass that on to our narcotics unit, and then they run with it, okay? But understand, and that can be a lengthy investigation. While they're investigating it, we're still helping them out. We're still giving them, hey, we saw this person going in and out, or we had this vehicle reported at their house. That all helps us during those kinds of investigations. So yeah, anything, I don't want anybody to put themselves in harm's way. I understand that. But if you are close enough to see a license plate or a description or anything like that, jot it down, get it to us. But like in a case like that, you see what you believe to be a drug transaction going down at that time, call that in. Yeah. Call it in, let them know. Depending on where we're at, hopefully we can get out there enough time to ID the people in the vehicle.
You know, it happens, you know, every couple of days, it's the same person, but going into a different car, you know, and then down the one street down on the corner was a needle, like, it's bad, you know, and I think they come up into Brookfield and Pembroke because it is quiet, and people are gone during the day, you know, so.
These are the types of things that need to be reported right away. It's great when we receive the information later. It's better than nothing at all. But I can tell you, when you start talking drug transactions that you feel are going down in your community, you need to pick up the phone. You need to call on that right away and give us a shot to get out there. And at bare minimum, ID them. Find out what's going on. We might not be able to make an arrest when we come out. Okay, we're unfortunately, you know, there's search and seizure laws and everything else. We have to have, you know, depending on what we have when we come out, we might not be able to search that vehicle, but we can ID folks inside the car. We can talk to them. We can see what we can get. Sometimes we can get, it's rare, but sometimes we can get canines up this far north, and so it's important to call that stuff in right away. And usually what I do is, if it's something that's an ongoing issue at a residence, such as you feel somebody's dealing drugs inside of a residence, I'll come out and do the initial report and the investigation, and I'll tell the person, I'll say, hey, you know, if you think about it, tell your family, jot down tag numbers, jot down descriptions, and then whenever you have them, get them to me periodically. That way I can start doing backgrounds and see if it's related. Because it's not normal for a vehicle to pull into a house, walk in for 5 minutes, walk back out. It might not even be 5 minutes. That's not normal activity. We all know that. I don't have to tell you folks that. And then have another one come in, and walk in, these very short encounters, that's not normal activity in life.
And they're parking like on the edge of
They know where
on
to
the
park
edge
to
of
hide.
timber mill,
Mhm.
you know, so they can just rip, get in it and go,
Yeah.
so.
And like I said, it may be nothing, but if it looks out of place, there's a good chance it probably is. Real good chance it probably is. And I tell folks all the time, I've done spills elsewhere. Well, you're not bothering the police when you call in suspicious activity. That's our job. Okay, our secondary function is really to get out there giving people speeding tickets. And I always joke, I said, listen, if we're not answering calls, we're out there issuing speeding tickets. So which one would you rather have? Speeding ticket or keeping us busy? And, you know, it's the reality of it. We work 10 to 12-hour shifts depending on where we're at, and we have to fill that time.
And the truth is, the more we call, the more Frederick County knows, and they'll send more police support into our community to help. If we're not calling, they're saying there's not a need.
And plus, you're gonna make, if they are doing something they shouldn't be, you're gonna make them feel uncomfortable, and they're gonna know, hey, guess what? The gig's up, okay? People are gonna start calling on this. They're gonna feel a little bit more uncomfortable. They're not gonna feel as at ease doing it. And that's the ultimate goal, is people who are doing those kinds of criminal activities, they're gonna continue to do them, but they can do it someplace else.
Amen.
Okay, you might not win the war, but you win the small battles, okay? Yes, sir.
Let me ask you a question. They handed this paper out tonight, and it gives two numbers on it, 911 and then this 301 number. But it says unless somebody is, body or property at risk, that's the 911 number you call, okay? But if you see suspicious activity like you said, or she said, maybe a drug deal at the corner, are you calling 911 or are you calling the 301 number? And it looks like the 301 number isn't like it's immediate. So how do you?
So the 301 number that's on there, I'll answer your question here. First, I'll go off by saying, at least call one of them. Some people, they don't feel comfortable calling 911, and I'll go into that in a second. So the 1046 number that's on the paper, that goes to our front desk at patrol, and then they can transfer you upstairs to dispatch. Who's going to dispatch the call out? That's why it's a non-emergency number. It's not tying up a 911 line per se. 911, that's straight emergency number to our dispatch. I'd say either or, but we want to give different options because some folks, they have two different mentalities. One, they don't feel comfortable necessarily calling 911, and two, they think, they got more important things coming in. I don't want to tie up a 911 line, so I'm not going to call at all. That's why we like to give several different options. You can also call, if you want to jot down a number here, I'll give you another one. It's 301-600-2071. Okay, that also goes directly to our dispatch, but it's not,
Did you say it again?
it's 301-600-2071.
Several times I've called to your dispatcher, and they say they have to dispatch you out of Walkersville or somewhere like that. How often are you in Emmitsburg? Every day? Every night?
Okay, so it's me and Deputy Whitehouse. We have two community deputies up here, if you're not aware. There's two of us, okay? We work 40-hour work weeks, and generally speaking, we flip-flop shifts. If one of us is on days, the other one's on evenings. Usually that's how it works, unless we have a special event or something like that to work. So, doing the math, that doesn't even put someone stationed in town 50% of the time. So the rest of the time it's being handled by whatever patrol deputy is working the northern part of the county. And yes, the deputy works the northern part of the county to include Emmitsburg, also has, it's an enormous area, also has Walkersville, which does have a fairly high call volume depending. So, and there might only be two of them, depending on what shift we're on. There might only be two working up north. So yeah, sometimes it can take a while. Now I can tell you this, depending on the seriousness of the call, if nobody is in town and a deputy is far off, we can't get authorization, they'll send Thermon up, and they've done that before. Thermon helps us out, and we back Thermon up.
So the difference is, does 911 get you a quicker response?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yes,
that's cool.
911 will always get you a quicker response.
I just want to add, I don't know if anyone here has ever called 911, but probably 9 times out of 10, it actually goes to Gettysburg first, because we're closer to Adams County, Pennsylvania than we are Frederick, Maryland.
Transfer.
So there's a little bit of a gap there, but they're still helpful. And I just wanted to touch on the anonymous, when you said for people to, when you call in to, you know, you can remain anonymous, they may ask for your name and your address, or your phone number rather. It's in the event that you get disconnected, but I've had to use it before, and no one ever came by to follow up, so I can vouch for that.
And also, you have to understand, when you call it, and I've heard this complaint, and I get it, but when you call 911, our dispatchers, per their protocol, are required to ask you specific questions. It might not even relate to anything of what you're calling about. And it can get aggravating, I understand that, but you have to understand, they're not picking on any one individual. They ask for the beginning of the conversation, they're gonna ask the same questions that they ask for every call, and it's their protocol, they have to. And the reason being, you need to understand, is they're trying to gather as much information as they can in a short amount of time to put out to the responding deputy. That way, we're best prepared upon arrival to handle that situation. So they're gonna ask you, if, you know, are weapons involved, or weapons even at your residence. That's not because we're planning on coming and seizing your weapons. But nowadays that's a scare, but that's not the case. It's their protocol, they're required to do it, so you just gotta bear with them, answer their questions and stay on the line. We have a lot of people disconnect. They'll call 911 and the dispatcher will start asking them some questions, and they'll get frustrated and hang up the phone. Of course, dispatches, if you hang up the phone, they're gonna try to attempt to call you back to see what the reason why you hung up the phone. So, as frustrating as it may be for you, just bear with them, answer their questions to the best of your ability, and they'll eventually get to the main reason why you're calling. And like I said, that's just to give us the best available information so that we know when we're responding. It really does help us out. Sometimes we get very vague information, and it sounds like it's a pretty serious call, and that's a kind of an uncomfortable feeling, having zero information and responding into something that sounds like it's fairly serious. Sir?
When I was a teenager in Baltimore, we had it was an auxiliary. It was called the Auxiliary Police Force.
Mhm.
You ever heard of it?
Yep.
And it was like guys that weren't policemen, but they were trained to be policemen, but as volunteer, and they would ride in the police car with the policeman. Is there any way that could be brought back again? Because that could alleviate a lot of problems here, I think.
Yeah, the closest thing we have is CAPS unit that works with the sheriff's office. They drive around in cars that look a lot like ours. They come in, they do volunteer shifts, and they'll ride around, and if they see something, they'll report it, and we'll come out and handle it. They handle a lot of traffic
CAP
control
stand
and
for?
stuff like that.
What does CAP stand for?
It's a citizens patrol, yeah.
So related to that, and I don't know this because I'm only a recent resident owner, but do any of the, like Brookfield, Pembroke Woods, or even in town Emmitsburg have any community watch programs? I mean, because there's other towns that have those.
Now, there are like neighborhood Facebook pages and people.
No, I mean where there's an actual watch where there's a group of people.
No,
belong
but
to a
that's where people
community
are communicating
that
there at this
does like
point.
maybe a regular.
There have been efforts to organize them, and the issue has been the level of commitment required. People don't, and that's the stumbling point. And that's a community-based issue. I mean, it's people who are willing to do it and people who are not willing to do it. And I think it reflects, the atmosphere that we're dealing with.
And we're actually gonna toss around that idea here in the near future. We're looking at trying to see if there's interest to reestablish that, and we've been in contact with one of the deputies in our community services unit who helps organize things like that, knows the requirements to have something like that to